Welcome to the Small Business Big Insights podcast. I'm excited to share today's episode. Very special guest, Mayor Mark Sutcliffe. And in this episode, you'll learn about Mayor Mark Sutcliffe's success and what actually made him so successful. And hopefully, you can learn and implement some of those strategies. We talk about leadership, we talk about media, business, politics, and trust me, you're going to get a front row seat to both some wisdom and a whole lot of fun. So today, we're joined by Mayor Mark Sutcliffe. You've been a radio host, a media entrepreneur at Great River Media, Ottawa Business Journal, and a business coach, and now you're the mayor of Ottawa. Honestly, you've worn more hats than a street performer at Buskerfest on Spark Street. In 2022, you've earned 51% of the votes in a highly competitive race, a strong mandate, and a very commendable lead. And what many people don't realize is that you're actually a fantastic business coach to many local businesses in the area. And so you've also had some really great insights for a lot of us in the community, and I hope to share that today with everyone. So
Thank you.
Very much welcome.
Thank you, Eric. And it's great to see you. And are we allowed to say that I was your business coach?
Of course. Yeah.
As part of that, which was for me, it was a great honor coaching you and Colin and working with you as you grew your business. And I was always so impressed with many things about the way you guys did business, but in particular, how you attracted people as clients and as employees based on the values you brought to your business. You took a very different approach from the traditional big accounting companies. And you focused on work-life balance for your employees and having that kind of environment. You focused very much on a digital platform for your clients, which was ahead of its time when you did it, and other people are now catching up to you. So I was always very impressed with both of you, and it was an honor, playing a small part in helping you navigate some of the decisions you made and tackling some of the challenges you faced as you grew your business. So
yeah, wow.
Great to have been part of that storyline, and that that's the only thing I regret about having launched this new chapter in my life as mayor is I had to give up the coaching work that I was doing, which was very satisfying and rewarding because of people like you. So thank you.
Wow.
Yeah.
So much flattery there. Thank you. Yeah.
And I'm a client of Zenbooks too. Let's not forget that.
Yeah. And so you were the advisor to the advisors. Like we advise a lot of small business owners, but you were advising us on how to help them too. So really great. Yeah. Thank you for that. Yeah. And we certainly miss you in the business community. Very helpful, very good at helping us even just understand, especially through our growth, like just some of the challenges we would face, right? Like even like whether that's terminations, whether that's just growing pains, you had gone through that before and you helped a lot of people through that. And so
thanks.
That's great. Let's get straight to it here. So we've got some questions I wanted to kind of go through that would be as helpful as possible to the community. When you first became a politician, you talked about how the political system is not quite built to attract or retain good-meaning people. And now that you've been in a position as mayor, do you still feel the same way?
Yeah, I do. And look, there are a lot of good people who are in politics, and I hope I'm one of them. So there are people who choose to, and I'll express a personal preference here that there are all kinds of people in politics, people who have been there a long time, people who come in and serve for a while and step out. You know my story that I had a whole career, and by the time I ran for mayor, I was in my 50s, and my goal is to do this for a certain period of time and then go back to my private life. And so I kind of prefer this, my own personal taste, but I kind of prefer that model where you have a life outside politics. You, at a certain point in your life, you choose to serve your community, you step into the role, you pour your heart and soul into it for a certain amount of time, and then you step away and you let somebody else carry the ball from there. I think the challenge around politics today is just how volatile and how divisive it's become and how hostile an environment it's become. And there aren't too many other realms where that's still acceptable. So I think professional sports might be the only other place where that's allowed. But when you're recruiting people to join your company, you want to provide them with a work environment that's productive, that's supportive, that's constructive, that's friendly. You don't bring them into the work environment and then have other people in that work environment tell them they suck and go on social media, questioning their motives and intentions. And I think as a community, if we want to be good employers for the people who have volunteered to serve as members of parliament, as members of provincial parliament, as members of city council, then we have to be a little more respectful towards them. And by the way, none of that means you have to agree with anything, everything they say. You may think they're going in the wrong direction.
Right.
But it doesn't have to take on the personal kind of nature of some of the attacks. It doesn't have to get into questioning people's motives. Everybody who's in politics, with very, very few exceptions, is there because they want to serve and help their community. They want to make the world a better place. And they may not have the same idea on how to do that.
Right.
But debate them on the ideas. Don't attack their motives and attack them personally.
Right.
Because then you're just going to end up with fewer and fewer good people wanting to do it.
Interesting. Yeah. And I mean, you mentioned, you're going to have the public life as a politician for several years and go back to private life. Do you really think it'll go back to private? Like you'll still be recognized, right?
Sure. Yeah. I have no idea what to expect when that chapter arrives. I mean, I guess I could talk to some former politicians. But I intend at a certain point to wrap up this portion of my career and then go back to being, go back to doing other things and also spending a little more time with my wife and my family and that sort of thing. Yeah, absolutely.
And I guess like in your role, in various roles, you've experienced the stress and the hardships of entrepreneurialism, of being a public figure now, in politics. What's, I'm going to say, your guilty pleasure to wind down? What's your kind of, when you're off duty, what's your kind of like thing to go to? Is there a hot spot in the city, a good ice cream shop? Like what's your space?
So I would say it's a couple of things. I'm into running. So, getting out and going for a run is it's very healthy physically and mentally for me, and it's something I enjoy. I would say the other thing would be spending time with my family. So, my wife and I typically have a TV show that we're making our way through. So we will try to have at least a couple of hours a week, a few nights a week where we're able to watch a couple of episodes of that show and keep progressing through it. My son plays competitive baseball, and so I try to go to as many of his games as I can. And some of those games are on the road, which gives us the opportunity to maybe take an extra day. And if it's a weekend tournament or something, we can take an extra day and explore a bit and have some fun away from Ottawa. And, I love going around the community in Ottawa and talking to people, but once in a while, it's nice to be in a place where nobody recognizes you and just be an ordinary person. So we get to do that from time to time, and that's very kind of restorative. That's helpful.
I heard there was that story in the U.S. with your son, and you're traveling, and you want to tell us?
Yeah. So my son plays competitive baseball at a high level, and he had a tournament in Nashville, Tennessee, which I'd never been to before. And so he was going to be down there for a few days, and I wanted to be there to support him as his dad. And so we decided to go down a few days early, and the Major League Baseball All-Star Game and Home Run Derby were a couple of days before his tournament started. So we got tickets and went to the Home Run Derby, and he caught a couple of home run balls. We were in the outfield, and it was great. It was just a great father and son trip and a great moment for the two of us. We had this little road trip, and then he played in his tournament, and then we drove back and we had a great time. It was a blast.
That's cool.
Yeah,
that's a great story. And maybe for the listeners here, what do you think? Do you think that Mayor Mark Sutcliffe is right here about encouraging our politicians and trying to be civil? Does that make sense? Does that resonate with you? Maybe leave a comment or whatnot. Now, in this next segment, we're going to talk about your personal side and kind of politics and or I guess we did talk about your personal side and politics, but now we're going to switch more towards small business and,
Sure.
and actual city hall matters, right? And so for our audience here in this segment, we're going to learn more about the city and what exactly is the city doing to help business owners, and what you should know as a small business owner who's interacting with the city in different ways, right? And so we're going to ask the billion-dollar question, literally a $5 billion question on what happens with the budget in the city, right? So maybe the question for you is, how much impact does the city really have on small business owners when the laws for corporations, for businesses, are often governed federally or provincially, right? So like, how many levers do you really have as a city, or what are the ways that you can actually impact these small business owners?
Great question, Eric. And so I would say there's a couple of things. Number one, there's advocacy that we can do. So as the mayor, I consider myself a champion for small business and for economic growth. To me, there's nothing more important than having a strong economy, because that means that we're creating jobs. It means that tourists are coming to our city, events are coming to our city. It means that we have the resources to tackle the other challenges that we're facing as a community. If the economy is growing, it means there's more tax revenue at all three levels of government, and we can invest those revenues into solutions for homelessness and the opioid crisis and all the other challenges that we face. So I'm a champion for a stronger economy, and I will continue to do that for as long as I'm mayor, advocating on behalf of the city of Ottawa for whatever it takes to have a strong economy in our city. When I'm talking to other levels of government, when I'm championing Ottawa to event organizers, or trying to bring events like Ironman Canada to Ottawa, when I'm talking to major international companies like Amazon who are investing in our city and building and hiring more in our city. So there's that role that I play. I think the other role that we play is to create an environment where businesses can be successful. And you're right, we don't pull all of the different levers when it comes to that, but we do have control over some of them. One of them in particular is, it's my goal to keep taxes as low as possible, because every small business owner is paying taxes in one form or another. They're paying taxes to the federal government, the provincial government. They're paying property taxes at the municipal level. They're paying other fees. We have had, over the last 3 years, the lowest property tax increases in Canada. That impacts every small business. If you own a piece of property, your taxes are not going up as much in Ottawa as they are in Toronto and Calgary and Vancouver and other places. It also impacts anybody who's renting, because if you're renting space, then your landlord, if their taxes are going up, they're going to charge you more because they have to cover that cost. And your suppliers' costs are going up because their taxes are increased, so they're going to charge you more for their products.
Yeah.
So keeping taxes as low as possible is one way that we try to create an environment that's good for business. But a big part of it is that we invest heavily in economic development. We have an agency called Invest Ottawa that receives funding from the city every year, and I'm the co-chair, along with a member of the community, of Invest Ottawa. And we work with Invest Ottawa, we work with Ottawa Tourism, we work with the Ottawa Board of Trade, we work with all the business organizations, the BIAs, everyone, to support their work and collaborate with them to create an environment that's really good for business. And we've been really, really successful in the past few years at attracting more investment to Ottawa, attracting more companies to Ottawa, attracting more events to Ottawa, doing things like reestablishing some of the direct flights that had been taken away during COVID. We now have a direct flight to Paris, a direct flight to London, more direct flights to the United States. That's really good for business. So all of those kinds of things that create a climate where businesses can succeed.
Yeah. No, that's really interesting. And I guess, like, with your background in small business, like, you understand that small businesses are the heart of a city, and that, to me, that's where all the cool products are, right? Like, that's where you're going to find the cool Shopify products, or they're the ones. The small business owners are the ones sponsoring your local hockey league or baseball league, and so how have you specifically helped the city better understand the small business owner needs?
Yeah, I go around and talk to business owners all the time. I go to the Byward Market, I go to Orleans, I go to Canada, I go to some of the rural villages like Manotick and Richmond and places like that. And I talk to business owners all the time about what they're encountering and how we can help them. And I bring that feedback back to the city and share it with the staff at the city. And again, I think a lot of it is about eliminating red tape, keeping things simple. If somebody has to apply for a permit, it shouldn't take too long. It shouldn't cost too much. Obviously, we have to recover our costs. That's just part of the process. But, and creating an environment where we're supporting business and we're finding solutions for businesses rather than putting up obstacles. And, again, a big part of that is our partnership with all these other organizations like Invest Ottawa, Ottawa Tourism, the Board of Trade, and so on, to make sure that we're listening to the needs of the business community and acting on them.
Right. Okay. No, that's fair. And I guess like the budget for the city is around $5 billion, right? And so the truth is there's been a lot of small business owners that have felt that the supports for programs are inadequate compared to other Canadian municipalities. And the fact is that the Ottawa Citizen reported about an open letter where there was 100 small business owners who had signed, and it stated that there was, quote unquote, a fundamental failure on the part of the City of Ottawa to provide small business with the necessary opportunities, supports, and grants. And I know that you've said that you are, quote unquote, attuned to their concerns and as an entrepreneur, right? And so you haven't exactly confirmed if the city will have a business advisory forum, which the open letter suggested. Do you feel that you're doing enough at the city?
We can always do more, and we're always listening to business owners. And again, that's why there are organizations like Invest Ottawa. We invest millions of dollars a year in Invest Ottawa to give them the tools to support the business community. And rather than that being a city department with a bunch of bureaucrats, it's an arm's length organization that leverages that investment, gets investment from other levels of government, from the private sector. The board is mostly people from the community, not people from City Hall, except for me. And the strategy is one that is driven by the private sector to support entrepreneurs, to support business growth, to support economic progress. So I listen to the concerns of people all the time, and of course, there are going to be people who feel like it's never enough, but we're doing a lot to support businesses in a very, very challenging economic climate right now through our work with Invest Ottawa. And then again, on the tourism side, we do a lot to support the hospitality industry by bringing more events to Ottawa, by bringing more tourists to Ottawa, by establishing these direct flights. So there's a lot of work that goes on to support the local economy.
Okay. Yeah, interesting. And I guess, do you want to tell more about what Invest Ottawa is actually up to? And maybe this could inspire some other cities on what they could be enacting in their programs, right?
Yeah, we don't want other cities to steal all our good ideas though. But look, Invest Ottawa, it does a lot to support small business owners and entrepreneurs as they're starting businesses. And in fact, before I became mayor, I did a lot of work through Invest Ottawa to support local entrepreneurs. They had a program where, somebody could book an appointment with somebody like me, an experienced entrepreneur, and sit down and chat about, how to get their business off the ground, how to incorporate, what to do to find their first location, all of just basic advice. They do a lot to support small businesses and entrepreneurs. And then they have particular strategies in growth areas, explosive growth areas like technology. We're working together with Invest Ottawa right now on a strategy for establishing Ottawa as a defense innovation hub. The federal government's about to spend a lot more money in defense as part of their NATO commitment. There are already a lot of companies in the defense sector in Ottawa, innovative companies that are doing great things around cybersecurity and AI and other technologies. And we want to see that industry grow in Ottawa. So Invest Ottawa is developing a strategy to work with the federal government, work with those companies on growing that industry in Ottawa. Even if you're not in the defense technology space or the defense innovation space, that will have an impact on your small business, because if there are more people working in high-paying jobs in Ottawa, they're going to eat out more. They're going to shop more. They're going to buy more cars. They're going to buy more furniture. They're going to do more things in the community. So what's good for Ottawa is good for every small business, and what's good for small business is good for Ottawa.
Interesting. Okay. No, that's fair. And I guess like you were helping a lot of small business owners before. Now you're, I'm going to say, even more attuned to how the city works, right? And how the little nuances that you maybe you didn't know before, right? On interacting with the city and whatnot. What did you learn as mayor that you wish you knew when you were an entrepreneur?
One thing that I've learned is there's often a perception that people who work in government are just always blocking things and putting up obstacles and taking too long to do things and that sort of thing.
Right.
And there's you can kind of develop a portrait of a typical civil servant, and I don't think that's an accurate portrayal of the people who work every day at the City of Ottawa. I've been really impressed with the caliber of people who work in city government. At the city government level, one thing that's very different from at the provincial and federal levels is the vast, vast majority of City of Ottawa employees are people who serve the community directly. So they're people who are collecting the garbage. They're people who are working in libraries and community centers and swimming pools and ice rinks, and people who are, plowing the roads and cleaning the roads and that sort of thing. So they serve the public directly, and they've chosen that as their career because they want to make their city better. Right. They want to serve their neighborhood, their community, and make the city better. So these are all kind, compassionate, caring people who want Ottawa to succeed. And so I would just say, if in retrospect, I probably wish I'd had a little more patience with them as they tackled the big challenges we're facing as a community, because they're all great people who are working really hard on behalf of residents. And that doesn't mean we get everything right. It doesn't mean we can't do things better. We could stand to improve lots of things at the city, and we're going to. But the people who work at the City of Ottawa care deeply about the future of our community and the business owners and residents of the city, and they want to see the city do well, and that's why they've chosen to work in municipal government. Yeah.
No, I think that's an interesting way of framing it is that municipally you're interacting with the municipality way more than you are on the provincial and federal, right?
And you see the results in your neighborhood, right? So at the municipal level, you go to work, you make decisions, you implement changes, and then you see the actual results when you're driving to work the next day or taking the bus, So it's the level of government that has the tightest connection to the community.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's interesting. All right. Well, for our audience here, what are you most surprised about in this conversation? So write down some notes about what you're thinking here, what you think the city could do to improve, but also don't forget to subscribe and so that you don't miss one of our future episodes. Also, leave us a nice review. Now, in our last segment, we kind of talked about City Hall and the supports that they have for small business owners. And now let's talk about your experience in media and leadership, right? And so here we're going to be talking to Mayor Mark Sutcliffe about some of his leadership lessons that have carried over, right? Things that are kind of good regardless of his roles. Now, maybe the first question here is that you've been a broadcaster, you've got to have some sort of hype song before you go live. You've got to, what's on your Spotify playlists?
Yeah, I don't know if I ever had any sort of thing that I played to kind of fire myself up or anything like that. I listen to a lot of different kinds of music. During the campaign in 2022, we had a campaign theme song that we played at the launch and on election night at our victory party. And it was a song called Brand New by Ben Rector. And it's a great song. It's very peppy. It's got a lot of energy. And it's my wife and kids will sometimes play it when I walk into the house at night, just as kind of a joke. And so, that's on a playlist that I have. I listen to a lot of Bruce Springsteen, Eagles. I listen to a lot of classic rock. So I listen to a lot of different kinds of music.
Yeah, that's good stuff. Yeah. Good taste. Okay. Yeah. And so I guess the other kind of frame here is that You've gone from being an entrepreneur to broadcaster to mayor. What's a leadership lesson that's been true regardless of your role?
I think everything in life comes down to people. And it's very easy to forget that sometimes when you're making decisions or you're creating a product or you're doing any kind of work whatsoever. Ultimately, it's all about the relationships you have in your life. And so, you can have good relationships with people or you can have bad relationships with people. That applies to your neighbors, your family, your friends, your coworkers, your boss, your clients, your suppliers. I try to think of every interaction I have with people as an opportunity to enhance the relationship, to make them feel hopeful and optimistic about the future and about themselves, an opportunity to find common ground, an opportunity to figure out something we can do together. So I always look at the world through that lens of, ultimately it's all about people and relationships because everything else is just stuff.
Right.
So that's one of the things that I think I would apply, no matter what role I'm in.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. Especially, as an entrepreneur, you're kind of dealing with clients, suppliers, all of that. You've got employees, and as broadcaster, you have to constantly think about like what's being published and who's going to care about what. And of course, as mayor, you care about your residents. And so, that's very fitting.
And the most important thing to anyone, we live in a world where your personal brand matters, right? Where you need to build up some equity in your own personal brand. And ultimately, what you need is for people to have a favorable feeling about you, right? And and every interaction is an opportunity to invest in that.
Right.
And there's that old expression: people won't remember what you said, but they'll remember how you made them feel, right? And what you say is important, but what's more important is just is the authenticity of whatever interaction you're having with someone, right?
Yeah.
And that, that's another lesson I would say that's really important is when you're in a leadership role, authenticity is huge. And it's so, it's so tempting in a leadership role and especially in a political role, to try to portray yourself in a certain way or to spin things a certain way, but you got to be yourself. You got to be true to yourself no matter what. You've got to be authentic. And you can see, politicians who have been successful in recent years are those who have been authentic and who are genuine in their interactions with people. And those who are not are the ones who are perceived as being fake or contrived, right? So,
right. Yeah.
And so I think that's a leadership lesson for everyone is just to retain that authenticity, be honest and transparent, be true to who you are, be clear when you think you've made a mistake and admit to it. Don't try to spin things, just be very real about everything.
Yeah. I think that's great advice. Yeah. I mean, I could just think of a couple of our clients who are more like online influencers and they've got to do what is going to get the views and they have to be a certain person online, but then I talk to them offline and then there's just very different people, right?
Yeah.
And so it's true that you are publicly very much the way that you are privately and that is almost like easier to live with like day to day, right?
And I would say that's another thing too. If you're going to go into politics, you're going to go into a leadership role, you can't control everything about it, but you can control who you are in that role, right? And you don't want to lose any of that. The greatest regret I would have at the end of my political career is if in some way I changed because of not for the better. I mean, I'm sure I can change in positive ways, but that I gave up something of myself or I compromised my own values or I'd rather lose a political battle than lose lose an internal personal battle with my own values, right?
Yeah.
Because the wins and losses come and go in sports and life and business and politics.
Yeah.
But you retain yourself. If you can retain yourself and your true self through all of that, then that's the most important thing.
Yeah, and it's true that like for you, like your identity is not as a lifelong politician, right? Like your identity has been, started off as like the entrepreneur and the broadcast, like you've tied your identity to those things and to helping business owners. And then the politician is a portion of your life,
Yeah, absolutely.
Very different.
Yeah.
No, that's good. And I guess if you could whisper some sort of leadership advice that you haven't mentioned yet into the ear of every small business owner in Canada, what would you say?
I think I would talk about how everybody faces challenges, right? I think that's one of the things that we talked about, and you were part of a group that I chaired and coached, and one of the benefits of that group was you see other people tackling challenges in their business.
Right.
I think in this age of social media, in life and in business, we have a tendency to see what's going on the outside of everybody's life, the world, what the version of their life and their business that they're projecting to the world, and we don't see what's going on the inside.
Yeah.
And so that leaves us with the impression that everyone else is being hugely successful and I'm struggling, right? With my business or in my personal life. And I used to say to my kids sometimes, like, notice when we go to somebody else's house, it's always really tidy. And then, when we come home to our house, it's not so tidy. But that's not because they're tidy all the time. It's because they cleaned up because we were coming over, right? And the image that everybody projects to the world is one of, how's your business? Going great.
Yeah.
And everybody else's business is going great, and I'm struggling, and I'm having a hard time with this client or this employee, or we're not making our numbers, or we've got this big challenge, or we're battling with a competitor for a contract or whatever. But in reality, that's what everybody is going through, and they're just not sharing that with you. So be aware of the fact that it's always going to be a struggle. It's never going to feel perfect, and relax and enjoy the fact that you're battling through these things and succeeding and learning along the way, and play the long game, but acknowledge that nobody's having a perfect experience in life or in business, and disregard the idea that somebody else is succeeding more so than you are, because they're probably struggling too.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting point. And yeah, I remember the group that you were chairing, and you created a very good, like, safe space for people to, like, I'm going to say, cut the BS and, like, get to the hard stuff, get to the valuable, hard sharing. And I think that a lot of small business owners need that space. And a lot of business owners, like, they talk to their employees and they have a version for the employee. When they talk to a supplier, they have a version of the story for the supplier. And when they come home, maybe it's a more honest take, hopefully. But yeah, staying true to yourself and being vulnerable to those other people. Yeah, and
that's a great point. You need to have somebody to talk to where you can be completely candid and honest. And in the group that we were members of, I think that was the case, because you described it perfectly, Eric, which is, you can't be. You can be authentic with your employees, but you might not be telling them everything you're feeling, right? So you don't want to go to your employees and say, I'm really worried about the future of this business, even if you are worried about the future of the business. And as an entrepreneur, how can you not be worried about the future of the business, right? So you're saying certain things to your clients and to your employees, but where do you get to be completely honest and talk about the things that really worry you? Being part of a group with other entrepreneurs like we were is one of the ways that you can do that. And I think the benefit of that is you get some help and some feedback, but you also get to see that other people are thinking exactly that, but you also get the value, not just the value of being able to share your problem and everybody helps you with it, but you get to see that other people have problems, and therefore you're reassured by the fact that, hey, I'm not the only person in the world who's worried.
Right.
And so there's comfort in that it's normal to have these fears and anxieties about your business, or to be struggling with a particular aspect of your business and need to fix it. That's normal. Everybody's going through it.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. And I guess, like, in the business world, when you were an entrepreneur, you were executing a vision at a very, very high pace, right? And in journalism is, I'm going to say, even higher pace, right? Like, things are moving very, very quickly. And so at the city, with bureaucracy and red tape and 17,000 employees, things can be slower moving, right? And so how do you tolerate the slow move at City Hall after the hustle and bustle of journalism and entrepreneurialism?
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, it can be frustrating at times to see the pace of government, not just, city government, but all levels of government. But at the same time, I would say the pace of the work that I do every day is probably just as rapid or more rapid than what I experienced in business because, it's funny. One of the biggest transitions that I've gone through in this role is I've gone from being a part of largely smaller organizations. I was involved in some medium-sized and larger businesses that had maybe 1,000 or 1,500 employees, but never 17,000 employees.
Yeah.
In this job as the CEO of a corporation that large with a $5 billion budget and 17,000 employees, I don't actually do very much myself, right? So, you have a small business, and I used to have small businesses where you go into a meeting, you make a bunch of decisions, and then when you leave, you've got on your to-do list 3 or 4 things that have to get done. Typically, when we leave a meeting that I'm in now, there's everybody else who is in the meeting has stuff to do, and I don't. But I just go to another meeting where we have another conversation like that, make a bunch of decisions, and then a bunch of people walk away with things to do on their to-do list. Yeah. So the pace for me is still pretty rapid because we're moving through so many different issues in any given day or week. But then the people go off and do the work, and then they come back and tell me how it went. Right. Yeah. So I still move through a lot of stuff. It's just I'm not the person executing on any of it.
Yeah. And although I would say like you're jumping in the meeting and actually building consensus on what everyone can agree on, and then everybody executes on what they said they're okay with, right? Yeah. So the building consensus is still a hard thing. Like it's not always easy, right? So, and I think that's hugely important at City Hall. And that's great. So now there's a couple rapid fire questions.
Sure.
So hopefully you're ready for this. So basically you got to give an answer real quick. You can't think it through. Just first thing that comes to mind. So are you ready for this?
Yep.
Okay. Books or podcasts?
Well, right now I would say podcasts because I used to read a lot and I love reading books, but that's one of the things, it's one of the few things I've lost in this new job is I don't have as much time to read. So I listen to a lot of podcasts while I'm running.
Oh, that's good. Okay. Chips or donuts?
Donuts. I definitely have a sweet tooth. Yeah.
Okay. And who's your biggest role model?
Oh, there have been a lot. I've been fortunate to have many people that I've looked up to in my life and career. I would say probably my greatest role model is Terry Fox.
Terry Fox. Interesting. Okay. And who would you love to meet one day?
Well, Bruce Springsteen would be great. I'm trying to think who else. Maybe Roger Federer.
Oh, yeah.
Tennis player. Barack Obama. Yeah, those would be a few. Yeah.
Okay. And last question. Are your kids proud of you?
I hope so. I think they are. It's interesting. I don't know that my life around them has changed as much as I thought it might when I made this leap. So,
interesting. Yeah.
And I think that's partly, I have a wonderful wife and partner, Ginny, who does a great job of managing all of our lives at home. And when I walk through the door at the end of the day, like when I go home tonight, I stop being the mayor and I resume being dad. Yeah. And I don't think that, apart from they sometimes come with me to a particular event or when I'm walking around in our neighborhood or going to things with them that I get stopped and people chat with me and recognize me. Apart from that, I hope, and I don't think their lives have changed as much as I feared or thought they would before I went into this. And so, I think they're, my daughter is 14 years old. I don't know that there are a lot of 14-year-old girls who go around talking about how proud of their parents they are. That's not part of the job description of teenage girl. But I think they're proud of me. Yeah.
That's good. That's the biggest accomplishment.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
and more importantly, I'm proud of them because they're great kids.
That's true. Yeah. Well, thanks for being a great sport. I know there's some fun questions in there. This is good. So you've worn a lot of hats as a broadcaster, entrepreneur, marathoner, a mayor. But I think what stands out most to me is the consistency that you've shown with the city. And so we see that, you're someone who genuinely cares about people, about the city, the kind of leadership. That's the kind of leadership that I think the city really does need, and it doesn't necessarily make the headlines, but that's kind of what makes the difference, right? And so you have a real commitment to making things better wherever you go, whether that's coaching or as a business leader. You've been chair of various nonprofit boards, and whether that's lacing up for yet another marathon, right? And so you're not loud, you're not flashy, and you just make things better wherever you go, and all while having a good laugh along the way. So I think we all need that in our lives. Yeah.
Thank you, Eric. That means a lot. I really appreciate that.
Yeah. And so I hope everybody enjoyed this episode. I would invite you to subscribe and leave us a nice review. This helps us along the way. So thank you.
Thanks, Eric.
Yep.
This was fun.